All right, I guess we can start 1 minute early at least. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the November 12th, 2020 meeting of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, which is not the case this evening, we do have a full board, please inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And as Ms. Sherhart mentioned, I think off camera just a few minutes ago, we do not have any messages for any agenda items that we need to play at any point in time this evening, so there's no cause to open up the public hearing. Is that correct? Okay. All right, so from there, I will go ahead and call the roll call. Mr. Gavin?
Present.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Platt?
Here.
Mr. Ofak?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Ms. Zukin?
Present.
Ms. Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Kroll?
I'm here.
And I am here. All right, so that moves us right along to the approval of the minutes for the October 8th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Kroll. Do I see a second? Second by Ms.
Second.
Zukin. All right, any corrections, additions, deletions? All right, not seeing anybody's hands. I will again go ahead and call for the roll call vote. I'll go in reverse order this time. I vote yes. Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ofak?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And finally, Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
All right. So that moves us on to our first item of unfinished business, which is case D1, case number 201024, public hearing for the appeal of Mary Ann and Sam Palazzolo, petitioner, and Luis Domin, owner, for the following variances. A, to waive 8.7 feet of the minimum required 35-foot south rear yard setback, and B, to waive 5.1% from the requirement that an attached garage be no greater than 50% of the total width of a front facade of the structure, to permit construction of a 2.5-story single-family dwelling with a front entry attached garage at the vacant parcel located on East 4th Street, parcel number 2522208-029. Ms. Sherhart.
Okay, let's see. Carol, can you allow me to share my screen? If that does not get...
All set.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, screen one, share. Okay, so this request was tabled from the last meeting. It was a request relative to a vacant parcel on East 4th Street. At the October 8th meeting, the ZBA made the following determinations. The request to waive 5.1% from the requirement that an attached garage can be no greater than 50% of the total width of the front facade of the structure, that was denied. The second variance request relative to the south rear yard setback is the request that was tabled and is before you today. So the petitioner did submit revised plans for this meeting. I'm going to go through how they differ from the plans that were seen before you in October. First, the primary facade width has increased from 35 feet 8 inches to 37 feet 9 inches. In doing this, the ratio of the garage to the primary facade has changed, and by our estimates, the garage now measures 49.5% of the total width of the facade, so that request for a variance is off the table and doesn't need to be considered. As for the rear yard setback, so what is before you has been changed slightly. The request in October showed a rear yard setback that basically the request was to waive 8.7 feet of the minimum required 35 feet rear yard setback. And the request before you today is to waive 8.4 feet. So it's just a change of 0.3 feet. The variance request has decreased by that scale. Other than that, by our estimations, you know, the height is unchanged. Other factors, you know, of the house don't require any further variances. So before you today is just this request for the rear yard setback.
Excellent. And can you take us off the screen share so I can
Yep.
see everybody? Thank you.
Stop share.
All right, excellent. At this point, are there any questions for Ms. Sherhart? Ms. Zukin?
So the reduction in the side yard setbacks does not require any variance?
It does not. It meets the minimum 5 feet that would be required.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I will give the floor to the petitioners and tell us about your change plan.
Month when we discussed, it seemed the concern was the garage. We were able to adjust the house plan to meet that requirement. And the only thing we're asking for is the just to round up approximately 9 feet in the rear yard. 2 of that is the cantilever of the in the back of the house. So really it's 9 feet from the cantilever. The entire block, both neighbors on each side of us, their rear yards are closer to the one is 25 feet from the rear, and we are 27.5 feet from the rear on the right side. And on the left side, our neighbor is 28 feet, and we are 29 feet from the rear yard. The entire block, none of them meet the 35 feet rear yard. If you look at the aerial, they're all approximately 20 feet from the rear yard to what ours is approximately 26 feet from the rear yard. So I think the evidence shows the variance is required due to these unique circumstances of the lot. Part of that hardship was caused by the widening of 4th Street, 15 to 20 feet, which was not caused by us. And due to these unique circumstances, this variance is needed. Otherwise, we did explore, which was brought up last month, to do a detached garage. So we laid out a floor plan that was 35 by 35, 1,200 square feet on the first floor. And that left us with 4 feet to pull a car out of the garage, which of course is impossible. So the detached was not an option that we could explore. And so we decided to readjust the plan, meet the garage front, and only request the rear yard.
All right, excellent. Any questions for the petitioners at this point? All right, I don't see any questions at all, so is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I'd like to move to grant the variances requested for the backyard setback.
We have a motion by Mr. Curtis. I see a second from Mr. Ofac. Mr. Curtis, any comments?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that they were able to work out the garage first. And I guess that worked out well. I hope it works out well for the petitioner, because they actually got to widen the profile of the house a little bit, and that solved the problem. I hope that's a satisfactory response for them. And the backyard is the backyard on this whole block, as the petitioner has pointed out. Certainly it's nothing to do with their doing. It's a very irregular situation in the city of Royal Oak. Basically every house requires this variance. So have at it, in my mind. Enjoy.
Mr. Ofac, any follow-up comments?
I agree. The hardships that they are facing is a lot of they're doing with the backyard and the setbacks there, because to put that on would be basically have a really tiny house there and probably would not be that livable. So what's the And anything in the back there is not going to be seen anyway by from the front. So I don't have a problem with their hardships regarding the backyard variance.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes, I will be supporting this. I think it's a really nice usage for that lot. I think we have that situation in other parts of Royal Oak where rather than just try to put a bunch of different elements on a lot, they can kind of have all the elements of the house they want, and I think fits very nicely in that neighborhood. So I'll be supporting it.
Excellent. Did I see your hand, Ms. Robinson?
Yeah, I'm good with this too. My biggest concern was the frontage with the garage, and they've addressed that. All those backyards along that stretch of 4th Street, that's okay. So I'll be supporting it.
All right. Any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. Mr. Ofak?
Aye.
Mr. Klatt?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
I vote yes. Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Support.
Ms. Zukin?
Aye.
And finally, Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. You're all set. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great night.
Enjoy.
Okay, we'll give them a second to log out. All right, moving right along to our first item of new business, E1, case number F201102, public hearing on the appeal of Maggie Schultz, the Guy Outdoor Services petitioner, and Craig Fletcher, owner, for the following variances. A, to waive 2 feet of the maximum permitted 4-foot fence height within a front yard setback along Baxter Avenue, and B, to waive 3 feet of the maximum permitted 3-foot fence height within 10 feet of an intersection of any driveway with a public sidewalk to allow a 6-foot site obscuring fence within a front yard setback as defined in the zoning ordinance located at 300 North Minerva. Ms. Sherhart.
Make sure I unmuted myself. Okay, so this request is for 300 North Minerva. It's located at the northeast corner of North Minerva Avenue and Baxter Avenue. Due to the orientation of the abutting home on Baxter, this corner lot is required to maintain front yard setbacks. Due to this, the maximum fence height within a front yard setback is 4 feet. As you can see, the petitioner actually installed this fence without permits. When it came to the attention of the building division, they were made aware of the need for variances, and so they were given the opportunity to seek that relief today. So the 2 requests before you have to do first with the height of the fence within the front yard setback. It's 6 feet and what's permitted is 4 feet. And so the first request is to waive 2 feet of the maximum permitted fence height. The next relates to the clear vision area that must be maintained where a driveway and a sidewalk or public street have an intersection. The maximum height of a fence within 10 feet of that intersection is only 3 feet. And so the second request is to waive 3 feet of that maximum 3 feet height within that clear vision triangle at the intersection of the driveway and the street. So those are the 2 requests before you today.
All right,
Any
excellent. Thank
questions for me?
Can you switch us back?
Yes.
All right, any questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the triangle, the clear view triangle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a triangle when I drive by. I see a 90-degree squared off corner there.
Sure. I guess the triangle is not how we describe it in the city of Royal Oak. It's just within 10 feet of that intersection, the maximum fence height can only be 3 feet. Does that make sense?
Mr. Klatt.
If they did clip the corner to create the 45, could they keep the fence at 4 feet? Would 4 feet be allowable? If they created a 45-degree angle at that corner.
It's 3 feet that's permitted. But if they clipped it so it is with outside of that 10 feet, then yes, 4 feet would be permitted on that front, but it's still within the front yard. So there's an issue with the height for that reason.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? All right, I see we have 2 different petitioners here. Which one of you would like to speak to this matter?
I am the contractor.
Okay.
So I would just like to explain that initially we did attempt to file for the permit. We received an email back and it did clearly state in the email that we were supposed to click back into it and pay a fee to have the permit actually filed. In my review of the paperwork though, I missed that because the subject line had an application number on it. So I just wanted to say that we intended to do this process correctly from the beginning and there was just an honest mistake that occurred. In regards to the vision, the site triangle on the corner of the driveway, we are willing to move that in a little bit. But in order to really make this property functional in the backyard space, a nice livable area, it really needs a privacy fence.
Very good. Mr. Fletcher, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at other neighbors in the area, and actually most of them have the same type of fencing around their backyards. I do see that some of them do have that further away from that driveway aspect, but they all are up to that area, and they all are regular privacy fences.
All right, very good. Then let me take it back to the board to see if the board has any thoughts or comments that they would like to add at this point. Mr. Gavin.
Was there a fence there before? Was this replacing a fence or was it?
There was a chain link fence there prior that was taken out probably 10 years ago prior to that. And there had not been a fence there since that point.
Thank you.
Mr. Olfak.
Well, I'll take the easy route, which is deny the variance on the triangle portion. Was it the
That would be the
part B, waiving the 3 feet of the maximum permitted 3 feet fence height within 10 feet of the intersection of public sidewalk?
Does he have a motion?
He did make a motion, yes.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear.
And you're going to second that, Mr. Kroll?
Yes, I am.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Olfak, and I'm going to add some follow-up thoughts to your motion.
Okay. Unfortunately, the hardships on, they have not presented a case for hardships at all on this case with the fence, let alone for the safety portion of this. Yes, previously it had a chain link fence, then nothing, and then now they want some privacy. Well, you can still have some privacy. There's several places that we've had come before us before that had to either do the triangle or had to live with it and go with the lower fence at that height. You're in an area that doesn't get a whole lot of car traffic, considering you might have cut throughs comparatively to other main roads. So what normally would be a case on a main road, I don't see where you would maybe even have the advantage of needing the higher fence for that public safety portion. So I can't see any reason why there's a hardship met to get that safety aspect waived.
Well, with a shorter fence here, because the property actually is up on a hill, the shorter fence is going to actually only be, when you're in the backyard, maybe a foot above that level of where the actual ground is.
Let me chime in here real quickly because I've been giving this one a lot of thought today, and the Planning Commission actually on Tuesday night did direct staff to come back with a timeline in terms of when they were going to address some of the things that we had brought up during our joint meeting, fence height on corner lots being part of that. And it seems like the will of the table is to move forward and make some changes that allow 6-foot fences. But even if the 6-foot fences are allowed, I am of a like mind with Mr. Olfak in terms of we cannot take away the safety considerations and the visibility triangle or the visibility sight lines, whatever you want to call them, I think do need to be kept in place, and therefore denial of Part B of this motion, I think in my mind makes perfect sense. It's just a matter of what the board wants to do with item A in terms of let's stick with item B. Does anybody else have any comments on item B?
I would just like to add that upon actual measurement of the existing fence, it's actually 8 feet 9 inches from the corner of the driveway to the corner of the fence panel. It's only listed at 8 feet on that diagram, I believe.
I'm going to let Ms. Sherhart
So
answer that. She may not have heard me. Well, actually, that being neither here nor there, I mean, at the end of the day, staff will go out to the property, they'll measure it, and they will determine where the fence needs to be legally located. Whether or not, well, actually, you know, let me have Ms. Sherhart chime in terms of the discrepancy of the measurement, please.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. All I can say is that the site plan that we do have is just kind of rudimentary, and it was done by hand, so I can't verify with certainty what that measurement is. But I think, as Chairperson Esbury was saying, we would make sure to determine, where does the 10 feet actually start, and go from there.
Okay, so with that clarification, I'm going to go ahead. Did you have a comment, Mr. Kroll?
No, do we have a motion on the table?
We have a motion on the table at this point to deny
Okay.
item B, which is
support then for that.
Yeah, that ship's already sailed. It's been supported. There's a second.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on it though.
Okay, go ahead, please do.
As I walked, as I looked at this, we've had a lot of these 6-foot fences. We've approved not very many. We've approved some when there's been practical difficulties. I drove up and I said, this is a safety issue. I mean, there's no way in the world I'm approving this. This is a safety issue. I went sideways, backwards, forwards, and you could not see a young child in a bicycle coming down that drive. We get a lot of these go for forgiveness instead of permission, and I can appreciate this was an honest mistake. But I mean, you do this in every city's kind of the same. So if people that live there, residents made this mistake, I say, okay, maybe they didn't know, but having a contractor do it, being a contractor myself, I think is pushing it about as far as you can. So I would absolutely be upset if we didn't make that safety feature right. And then we can talk about the rest of it later, I guess.
All right, with that being said, then I will go ahead and call for the roll call vote on the motion, which is to deny item B of E1. And I will start with Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Klatt.
Aye.
Mr. Olfak.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Ms. Zukin.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Mr. Kroll.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the motion to deny B has been handled, and that moves us to item A, which is to waive the 2 feet of the maximum permitted 4-foot fence height within a front yard setback along Baxter Avenue. Does anybody want to make any comments on that prior to any motion being introduced? So here's my thought. On this one, we could, obviously we could move to allow it, or we could move to deny it, or we could, and I'll ask the city attorney to sort of chime in on this, as there is progress being made at the Planning Commission, which is going to move itself, at some time not too terribly distant future to the City Commission. Would it be appropriate for this board to table that portion of the item for 90 days or 120 days so we can see where the city lands before we compel them to take a hacksaw to a fence that may very well be permitted come sometime early next year?
I have no idea when that's going to happen, or if it's going to happen. So it's kind of hard for me to even comment on that. Something that could happen, it might not. No timetable that I'm aware of, anyway.
Right.
Here, I'll just make the motion. I'll motion to deny A.
Pardon me. Is it
Oh,
possible?
hang on one second, ma'am. We have a motion by Mr. Ofac. Is there support?
Yes,
Or is there a second?
I will support that.
Okay, so we have a motion and we do have a second. Go ahead, ma'am. I just wanted to get the motion taken care of first.
Is it possible to table this till the next zoning board meeting so we can come up with additional evidence that there is a hardship here?
Oh, how are you going to do that?
Where there's a will, there's a way, sir.
Well, yeah, there's got to be more than wills and ways of this. We're a zoning board, so.
Well, I'd have to look into a little bit more research as to why you approved the few that you mentioned were approved and
Well,
see if this is a comparable situation.
There really isn't any. Every case is deemed by its own virtues and its own practical difficulties. I don't view that you really have a practical difficulty. If you have, you state it so we can consider it in this decision.
It decreases the property value if they can't use that whole backyard. If you cut the backyard down.
That is not one of the practical difficulties, ma'am.
So
There are four.
Okay, Alan, let her finish her thoughts. Go ahead, ma'am.
well, can you explain to me what a practical difficulty is then? Because I guess if the backyard's not functional, to me, that's a practical difficulty. So I'm not, I guess, understanding what that means.
The long and short of it is, can your yard be used as it currently sits, or could it be reasonably used and enjoyed with a 4-foot fence? And are you able to present a practical difficulty that suggests that in the absence, again, let me finish my thought, ma'am. In the absence of us permitting a 6-foot fence, can you use your backyard? And if you are not able to present a hardship, just telling us otherwise, then with the lack of that hardship, then what we have to do as a board is pretty cut and dry.
Okay. Hey, Lance, are you available?
Yep.
So can you explain to the board the best you can what difficulties not having that privacy fence brings into your life?
I mean, it's not usable. The backyard, it's totally open without that. And because it sits higher on a hill, I mean, I don't know if you've been into the backyard or not, but it sits higher on a hill. I mean, having a 4-foot fence is going to be like having nothing in the backyard.
Okay.
All right. Well, before I call on you, Mr. Ofac, I had Mr. Gavin's hand in queue first.
Actually, what I was going to ask was, what is the makes it unusable? So I'd be curious, since I actually didn't have a chance to get out there and look at it, and I doubt even if I had, I would have been able to see it because of the fence. What is the slope like? I don't understand the shape of your backyard. You say that it sits higher, like it's a hill. Is it like a mountain?
It slopes out. So from the point of the cement, it's probably a good 3 to 4 foot higher, actually, where the house sits from the ground level of the cement.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Gavin?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Ofac.
First, before I got into go into defending my motion, I did have one question for Mr. Sherhart. So that 4 foot on the measurement, is that from the sidewalk or is that from grade of their backyard right there? Since their backyard is raised, and I do acknowledge that portion of it.
I mean, I believe it's, what is the definition? I don't think it's going to be the average grade. I think it's probably just the height from the grade at where the post actually is.
Yeah, see,
it
says like it's gotta be the height of the fence, right? Not a mention of
right
the sidewalk
height,
versus
4 feet within the front yard setback. So my guess is because that raised grade is within the front setback, the 4 feet would be measured from that grade. Grade.
Yeah.
All right, I've got Mr. Gavin, then
So-
Ms. Robinson. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ofac, I thought you were done.
So and if we want, if there's any more questions before I go into my defense.
I found the definition. It's right in our package. It says No fence shall be erected, constructed, or reconstructed to a height of more than 4 feet above the adjoining ground level of the owner's or lessee's property when placed in the front yard. So it's right at that ground is how I interpret that. I don't know.
Yeah,
if Ms.
so the
Shearhart
raised
has that.
portion. So, in all reality, that 4 fence is already 4 feet plus that extra foot or 2 above the sidewalk. The part I have here with the hardship is, as you can see from some of the neighbors, as well as what they had before, there could be, if desired, for a 6-foot high chain link fence there. But we've had many people come before us on corner lots, on not busy ones, where we said, no, sorry. The law states this 4 foot is what's required because you have a front yards on that side yard, and we're not creating a big, huge wall here that corns off and makes everything feel right up on you, especially since that fence is right next to the
driveway.
There's other ways of doing privacy. We've given examples in past of using arborvitae or other plants in combination with a 4-foot fence if one person really wants extra height. But as stated here, they already have that extra height because their backyard is a little bit higher than the sidewalk. So they're already getting 4 plus over someone walking on the sidewalk. Is it ideal compared to what they want, which is 6 feet? No, but they're still having privacy. So because of that, I can't see a hardship on why they need a required 6 feet over it.
All right, any other comments on this? Ms. Anderson?
If you look on Google Maps, you can see the property without the fence. And it is probably a foot. I wouldn't say it's 2 feet higher because there's 2 sets of railroad ties and one looks like it's sunk down a little bit. But I'm just not seeing the hardship here at all. So that's where I'm going with it.
For either members of staff, if the motion to deny is passed, how long does the petitioner have to take action in terms of taking corrective action?
Like to be reheard or to seek?
No, if you tell them that they have to take a chainsaw to the fence, how long do they have to do it?
Oh, unfortunately, I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but I would be able to find that out from building or code enforcement.
All right. I was just curious. All right, well, I will be voting, as much as I hate to do this, because I'm a proponent of 6-foot fences, but again, a hardship has not been presented. Sadly, asking for forgiveness instead of permission, this is a situation that could have been avoided in advance had it been handled properly. So if there are no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and call for the roll call vote on the motion to deny E1A. And I will start with myself. I vote yes. Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Where was I? Mr. Curtis?
No.
Mr. Olpak?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
All right, so the motion to deny does pass with one nay. All right, thank you, folks. All right, so that moves us along to, where am I here? Item E2 of new business case number F201103, public hearing on the appeal of Martin and Elise Levinson, petitioner and owner for the following variance. A, waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable 6-foot fence height in a rear yard to install an 8-foot site obscuring wood fence located at 25960 York Road. Ms. Shearhart?
Yes.
What was that, Mr. Curtis?
Okay, let me get to the screen that I want.
Mr. Klatt? Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Gavin?
Weird, do you guys hear that it's replaying?
Yeah, we're getting like that reverb, yeah.
That's weird.
I was wondering what that was because I heard Mr. Klatt, I'm like, he's on mute. I don't know what's going on here.
It's like, was the vote that we just did. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not really sure, but we'll roll with it. Okay, so this request is for 25960 York Road. It's located south of Lincoln Drive, just to the west of Woodward Avenue. The petitioner proposes to replace an existing 8-foot tall site obscuring wood fence that borders their rear property line from the alleyway that separates some multiple family residential along Woodward Avenue. If we go to the photos, you can get a picture of how it looks existing. And you can see, oops. I'm having difficulty, but you can get a sense of, so this is the side yard fence that's 6 feet, and then this one here is the 8-foot. So per the fence ordinance, within a rear yard, the maximum fence height is 6 feet. They're requesting 8 feet. And so the request before you is to waive that additional 2 feet in fence height for a fence constructed along their rear property line. And I'll go to the site plan. Do you have any questions for me?
Switch screens if you would, so I can see everybody.
Got a couple people with their hands raised.
Yeah, I've got a question.
I'm not on share screen, so I can't see everybody.
Oh, sorry. I'll stop my share. Sorry.
Okay, there we go. Okay, my apologies. I only have like 3 faces on my screen. So I see Mr. Gavin first, so I'll go with him.
It looked like some of the neighbors had 8-foot fences as well. Do we know, is it like 8-foot fences that entire length of that property they're adjoining, or do we know?
Yes, it is.
Request before you is to waive that additional 2 feet. Oh, I hear the reverb of myself again. That's so weird.
Yeah, that's going to get obnoxious, but we'll work with it.
Sorry.
Then I think I saw Mr. Curtis's hand.
It was the same question about 8 foot in the back.
Okay. And Ms. Anderson?
Now, the way I'm reading it, the petitioner wants an 8-foot fence, not just the rear, but on the sides too, because it says rear yard, not necessarily, see what I'm saying?
Well, the petitioner can answer that when we get back to him.
All right.
Any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? All right, not seeing any. The petitioner, Dr. Marty, the floor is yours, sir. You're on mute, sir.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. You're back on mute, sir.
I hear the reverb of myself again. That's so weird.
I think I may have, it may be on my side. Let me see if I can.
The reason you're getting the reverb is I believe somebody has the live stream, possibly Dr. Marty has the live stream going. It's always a few seconds behind the live meeting, hence the reason we're hearing that in the background possibly. So if you have the live stream on, if you can mute the live stream, that would probably solve this problem.
I believe it was me and I closed it off. Thank you. Sorry for that.
All right, sir, the floor is yours. Tell us about what you want to do.
So there's been an 8-foot fence there since we've lived here for 40 years. We're just trying to replace it. The neighbors all have 8-foot fences along that same property line. We're not looking to make an 8-foot fence between the houses. That's just we're gonna replace a 6-foot fence that's already there. So we just need the variance because even though we've always had an 8-foot fence, we were told it requires a variance to replace it with another 8-foot fence.
Simple enough. Ms. Anderson. You're on mute, Ms. Anderson.
Right. My question is that you said it's been there for 40 years. Do you know if it was put up by the apartment building? Only I'm asking that because it seems like it's all falling down at once. So everything is kind of leaning. And I noticed on the other side of Lincoln, the gas station actually put up a 8-foot concrete or a brick fence. And I was wondering if it was code for Huntington Woods and different for Royal Oak. Do you know of any, have you heard of any of that?
So I do not know the answer to that. The 8-foot fence has been there since we moved into this house 40 years ago. The drawings that you have there were just a covering over the front of the 8-foot fence, but it's always been an 8-foot fence. The part that's leaning is the fence between our yard and the neighbor north of us. That has been unstable, and we're planning to replace that one, but we're just replacing that with another 6-foot fence.
Right. There were some other fences along that rear line that goes all the way down the apartments that also looked like they were precarious too. So I was just wondering.
And I'm not sure who originally put it up because it was up 40 years ago when we moved here.
You're right. Okay.
All right. Any questions for the petitioner at this point? All right. Not seeing any hands. Is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Kroll.
Muted.
You're muted, Alan.
I would like to make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I see a second from Mr. Opak.
Yeah, Paul got his word out first. I'll let him have the second.
Mr. Kroll, floor is yours.
If I'm the guy across the street again, and I got a chance to look at a new action fence or that thing, it's kind of a no-brain decision to me.
Any other follow-up comments? Mr. Opak.
I think the hardship here is if you look at all along those backyard fences, they're all 8 feet. So put something in there that would be 6 feet would all of a sudden look a little odd, especially if coming from the apartments. So in this case, I believe it's best to put in 8 feet to match the rest of the neighboring.
Any other comments? All right, not seeing any. I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. I vote yes. Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Opak?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, the motion passes. You are all set, sir.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Have a great night. All right, we're zooming right along here tonight. We are now down to new business item E3, case number 201126, public hearing on the appeal of Lee Broadbridge, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, to waive 160 feet of the maximum allowable accessory structure ground floor area of 800 square feet, and B, to waive 0.5% of the maximum allowable 10% accessory structure lot coverage to permit construction of a 384 square foot pavilion accessory structure in the rear yard located at 429 Woodlawn, Misherhart.
Okay, I'm gonna see if using the PDF not from the internet agenda works better. So, okay, so this property is located on Woodlawn Avenue. It is west of Rochester Road. The property is improved with a single family home and a detached accessory structure. The petitioner proposes to construct a 384 square foot gazebo or pavilion in his rear yard. Sorry, I'm just going to go to the site plan here. From the perspective of the zoning ordinance, this structure is considered an accessory structure. The square footage of the lot itself is about 9,150 square feet. So the maximum square footage of accessory structure floor area that would be permitted is 800. With the addition of this proposed pavilion, the total accessory structure floor area would be 960 square feet. And additionally, with the addition of this pavilion, the lot coverage of the accessory structures on the site would be 10.5% when the maximum is 10%. And so there are two variance requests before you. The first is to waive 160 square feet of the maximum allowable accessory structure ground floor area, and then as well to waive 0.5% of the maximum allowable accessory structure lot coverage. In terms of the style of the structure, do we have drawings? I'm not sure that we do, but per the report, it's going to have a gable style roof line with asphalt shingles, no sidewalls. And I might let the petitioner speak more to the design of the structure if you are curious. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Hart at this point? Mr. Klatt?
Just to be clear, in the report, it mentioned a 17-foot by 25-foot structure, but it says 16 by 24. So I want to verify that. And also mentioned that there's an existing concrete pad in the rear yard. I didn't see that from Google Earth. Is that there? I didn't walk in their backyard, but I didn't see that in the overhead.
I might defer to the petitioner. I think Joseph prepared this report, so I'm not 100% sure if I believe here are the designs. The structure is going to be located on that pad. And I think the reason for the difference in measurement is just that we're counting the coverage from the edge of the eave, I want to say. So to fully capture the full lot coverage of the structure.
Yeah, because 17 by 25 is considerably larger. That would put you, well, that's 425 square feet. So that would be a different variance.
Yeah. Let's see.
Just verifying. I mean,
I think that could just be a
Yeah.
typo. 16 by 24 is what's shown on the plan. So that's what we're going to go with. And that's what it was noticed for. So I think
thanks for the
that might be
clarification.
an
Thank you.
error. Yeah.
Any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? All right, not seeing any. I see the petitioner is here. Currently, you have your camera off and you are on mute if you are trying to speak.
Can you hear me talking?
There you are. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because I do have the camera on and everything too. I don't know what's wrong. Yeah, there is a pad back there that's already 16 by 24. And it's part of the patio. And there is a drawing of the when I reviewed the pictures, it's there. I just had to move my bar on the bottom of the screen over to get it into the picture. But yeah, the pad 16 by 24. And that's, see, when I set that up, I thought that I could have a third of my lot size in, square footage of buildings and stuff, including my house. So there's 9,100 square feet a lot. And then with the garage and this new structure in my house, it only comes up to like 2,600 square feet, I think, something in that neighborhood. So I thought I had plenty of square footage. Then when I put in for the permit, that's when I learned about this 800 square foot rule for the the accessory buildings and stuff like that. So here we've already got that pad out there, and I mean, that's the way we were planning to have it. And it would be kind of ugly looking if we just put a structure on there that's like it's going to be wider than it is deep, is what it's going to end up. It's going to look kind of funny when we put it up.
Are there any questions for the petitioner at this point? Who do I see? Ms. Zuka and then Mr. Klatt.
Mr. Broadridge, when did you put that pad in?
Just this summer.
So it was in anticipation of covering it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's another thing too. We used to have a giant walnut tree back there, and it was nice shade, but it was so much maintenance. There was like 2,500 pounds of walnuts coming off of that thing every year or every other year. And the squirrels, and it was, you know, it looks great, but it's really hard to take care of. And now we don't have any shade anymore, so it would be nice to have a roof. Plus, you know, if you're doing something and it starts raining, we'll have cover. So that's a big reason there too.
I think Mr. Clyde, did you have a question, sir?
That was my question too, because I did not see that pad in the aerial, so I was curious as to when it was put in. Have you already installed the foundations for this pavilion structure, or is just the pad set right now?
This is where you come into the 17 by 25 foot part, is that we're pouring pylons, you know, the tubes. We're gonna dig the holes for that and then pour the cement into those tubes in the 42-inch depth, and that's what we'll have inspected. That's what the 6 posts are going to sit on top of to hold up this structure. So they're going to have their own individual foundation. Each column is going to be a 10-inch concrete, you know, piling or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what to call it.
So you're going to set those outside that existing pad, correct? So that's where it becomes larger?
Yeah, the roof part of it. But the walking area of it, the square footage, like the floor area, I would call it, is the 16 by 24. That's why we called it that.
So I guess that goes back to my original question. Wouldn't this be a larger variance request at 425 versus 384? And that leads to my other question. I mean, we're asking for 2 variances here, and item B is waiving 0.5%. That's you have to cut this down a bit. You know, maybe you can cut down the length versus the width, but that might be an option to at least remove one of these variance requests. Have you considered something like that? You know, simply, instead of expanding upon this, saw cutting that existing pad, removing a portion of it, and making one of the variances go away. It probably gets, I have to do the math now, but maybe 17 by 20 would get you to 340 square feet, which will get you below that 10% rule. Is that an option?
We could possibly do what you're saying. We could cut where we were going to put the pilings on the sides, and we could cut into the pad and then put them right within it, you know, and then just still have the 16 by 24. But if we shorten it, that's the part where it's going to look really ugly, I think, you know, because you're going to end up with a width that's wider than the thing is long. When you got to imagine like an accordion or something, and you pushed it, you know, in, it would be like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like the width of the thing will be wider than the length. If we come back like the 10 feet to alleviate all of this, you know, would be, besides the regular building permits.
Let me move on to Mr. Ofac. He's had his hand up for a while.
Going upon Mr. Klatt's questions upon what hardships do you have? Because what I see is basically you could still put up something that gives you shade. So why does it have to be this larger size? Why can't you live with the 10% and at least have just one variance? You already have one side that is longer than it is the other one, being 17 by 25 or 16 by 24 or what have you. So you already have that difference. It's not a square. So I'm trying to understand what hardship are you trying to present here that you can't live with and have a shaded thing and still utilize it?
I never even thought about anything as being a hardship. When I filled out the paperwork, I thought it was for dimensions. I wasn't really claiming any kind of a hardship for it, so, but I mean, now that we set everything up like this, and now it's just a matter of aesthetics, how it's going to look. And it's just not going to look right if we make this thing smaller with the size of a patio that we set up. I mean, I could always grow another walnut tree, I guess, but it's going to take a long time. I don't want to do that.
I see Mr. Gavin.
And this may be more of a procedural question, but going off of Mr. Klatt's comments on the size, it sounds to me like the variance that is being requested will, even if we grant it, won't be enough to build the structure that is being contemplated. So even if we grant this, you can't build it to the size that you're already planning. So I don't know how we proceed from there. Is it something you want to, and I don't know if it's, since the variance being requested is too small for the structure as designed, if you want to pursue a variance for the structure as designed, I don't know if you have to withdraw this and file a new one, or I don't know where we go from here. It's a weird situation to be in, it sounds like. So I kind of wanted to raise that because that's what my concern is right now, and I don't know where we go from there.
I can bring it to the size, to the 16 by 24 by cutting into the pad, like you said, saw cut that, and then put my footings in at the 6 locations where the columns are showing. I wish you could bring that picture up because it's there. It's in this where you had the pictures of the house next door and the trees and the side view. It's the last thing on the
Yeah, it is there. I couldn't find it when I was going through it before, but actually each board member should have the agenda in front of them, so they are able to see the full packet with the full set of drawings.
Thanks, Juliana.
Yep.
I mean, the one thing that sort of popped in my head when I was looking at this, demonstration of a hardship notwithstanding, we have looked at a number of cases recently where we really talked about the proportionality of yard coverage based on the overall square footage. And one thing that was not giving me heartburn about this particular case was we're talking about a lot that's in excess of 9,000 square feet, which is a full 50% larger than our standard, 6,000 square foot gold standard, if you will. So when I look at 160 square feet or 0.05% coverage, and I sort of take that and work the numbers backwards into a 9,000 square foot lot, I think the proportionality, frankly, this plan didn't give me any heartache whatsoever. And I think it'll be a beautiful thing in somebody's backyard that, frankly, other than the homeowner and the 2 neighbors are going to see. That I don't see anything that's giving me any heartache whatsoever. Mr. Gavin.
Mr. Broadridge, did you talk to any of your neighbors about? I saw that there was one email we got. I'm just curious if you talked with any of your other neighbors about this proposed pavilion.
The only neighbor that I did talk to, and he's the one that can see it the most, is my next door neighbor, AJ. And he said he didn't have any problem with it at all. He thought that it had already been approved when he got his letter from, about this meeting. So, he's fine with it. And I didn't have a chance to talk to the person directly behind me. But I saw him in the backyard the other day, and I waved to him, said hi, smiled, said hi back, and I figured if he wanted to say anything about it, he would have then. So I figured he was okay with it too. But that basically, those are the only 2 people that can actually even see this, except for us out of our back door when we walk out to it. And,
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Mr. Broadridge, is AJ the neighbor directly to the west in the 2-story newer home?
Yes, he is.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have enough clarification in terms of what we're dealing with here, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table. If anybody has any comments or is prepared to take any action. Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I'd move to allow this, both of these variances.
A motion by Mr. Curtis. And I see a second by Mr. Gavin. Mr. Curtis, the floor is yours again. If you have any additional comments.
Yeah, I was interested to drive by the site and get a look at it, you know, and as you said, it's a really large lot with that irregular line kind of drifting off to the east as it goes back. And I was concerned primarily for the neighbor to the west. I mean, they're the most impacted, right? The sight lines they have. And if AJ's good with it, I'm good with it. As you said, the extra size lot doesn't give me much heartache either with the, you know, square footage there.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Ofac.
I'm somewhat bind on this one because the square footage portion, I don't care as much because, again, it's a larger lot, but the 0.5% I do care because 10% still is 10% of what we're trying to hold to. He can still easily get a nice, very sized pavilion there to get coverage. This is all his own doing in a way and hasn't really brought the hardships upon us that limits why he can't hold to the 10% at least. I can understand on the square foot, but the 10% is the one that I have more the heartburn with.
Any other comments? I see Ms. Zukin.
My concern is that the only practical difficulty is because he put in the pad thinking that he'd be able to build whatever size he wanted. The fact that it doesn't have any walls makes it difficult for me to say, well, I have to deny this because there's no practical difficulty. It's an open air structure that the neighbor, as has been said, that would be most impacted doesn't seem to mind it. So it's a harder call, but I think I will be supporting it.
Mr. Gavin.
I just wanted to chime in on the practical difficulty. That's a thing that we've, it's not technically a large lot, but it is a larger lot. So that's kind of where my mind goes when I think of it as a practical difficulty, because it's still going to be plenty of space on that lot, and it's I don't see that it. Well, I think that's the practical difficulty.
Mr. Kroll. You're muted.
Muted.
Thought you guys liked when I was muted. So I'll be supporting this. We call every structure a garage. Somehow I didn't really read this as being a garage. I guess the larger lot also kind of was moving me, but I didn't, I don't know exactly what this is. I don't know if we could qualify it with anything else we've had, but it doesn't seem like a garage to me. So because it's open in air, I agree with Ms. Zuka that because it's open air, and I don't see it really as that structure.
All right, not seeing other hands, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote.
Wait a second, Miss Anderson had her hand up there.
Oh, I didn't see. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Your screen is like a third of the size of everybody else's for some reason.
Here, instead if I go like this and then I gotta scrunch down. Hold it up there. So my difficulty is with B, and just because of that, I don't think I'll be able to support it. But I do feel that maybe it hadn't been rushed through, things could have been looked at differently. They could have maybe gotten the pad the way they wanted it, not had such a large structure there, and not had to need the 0.5% for the maximum allowable accessory. But that's just what I'm thinking. So thank you. I got to turn myself back this way.
All right, then I will start the roll call vote. Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Mr. Opak,
Nay.
Mr. Klatt,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Kroll,
Aye.
Ms. Anderson,
No.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
All right. So if I'm doing my math correctly, Ms. Sherhart, that passes 6-3. You're muted.
6-2?
7-2.
7-2.
Wait, who are the names? Show your hands,
Oh,
please.
Mr. Opak and Miss Anderson.
Okay, I thought I heard 3 names. My mistake. Okay. All right, so the motion passes 7-2 then. All right, very good. So, Mr. Broadbridge, you are all set. All
Thank you very much.
right, have a great night.
Okay, thanks, you too.
Okay, moving on to item E4, which is case number 201127, public hearing on the appeal of Marilyn Begani, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, to waive 1.8% or 147.4 square feet of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 30%, and B, to waive 3.8 feet of the minimum required 5-foot south side yard setback from an attached accessory structure to permit construction of a 165 square foot pergola style carport accessory structure over the driveway located at 1520 Marywood. Ms. Sherhart.
Okay, let me go to my desired screen. So this property is located on Marywood Drive, north of Woodborough Drive. It's zoned 1 family residential and is improved with a single family home and a detached garage. What the petitioner is proposing is an attached carport or pergola that would go over the driveway. Go to this here. And given the function as a carport, we are interpreting this as an accessory structure. And because of that, we are, well, I guess actually I'll back up. So because it's an accessory structure, we need to include it in the lot coverage calculation. The existing structures on the lot cover 29.8% of the lot area, so almost at that 30% maximum. With the addition of the carport, the total lot coverage increases to 31.8%. And so the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive that 1.8% of the maximum allowable lot coverage. And then additionally, as we are considering this an accessory structure, the carport does need to comply with setback requirements. Because it's attached, we would apply the setback requirements of the primary structure, which are 5 feet on each side. I'm going to zoom in. I believe from the near support column, the pergola maintains a 2-foot setback, and from the closest rafter, the structure maintains a 1.2 foot setback. And so the variance request is to waive 3.8 feet of the minimum required 5 feet south side yard setback. Do you have any questions for me?
Can you use the screens?
Oops, stop.
Thank you. I saw Ms. Anderson first.
So Juliana, I'm a little confused with this compared to the last one, because the last one had a hard surface over top of the pergola or the pavilion, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
If this weren't attached to the house for stabilizing purposes.
It is attached to the house.
I know, but if it wasn't, would it have to come before the board? It's very difficult for me to look at something that doesn't have a roof and think of it as a carport.
I don't think we're debating the qualification of whether or not it's an accessory structure. It is considered one in this case. So
Would it be one if it weren't attached to the house, if it were freestanding?
That I'm not sure. I think it would depend on sort of the support columns involved, but I really can't say.
Okay.
And I'm going to go to Ms. Robinson and then Mr. Opak.
I'm good.
Oh, you're good. I thought I saw your hand up. My
No.
apologies. Anthony, yes, sir.
Just because I don't think I can recall us ever having a carport before, but so I have a question. If we granted this, would they be able to in the future change it into an enclosed space because we granted it, or are we, if they are allowed that, would we then be able to put a caveat on this that this would be only granted as its current proposed structure?
I think you can add the specificity if you'd like to protect against that scenario in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? Ms. Anderson, I see your hand again. And you're muted, Leslie.
If it were attached to the rear side of the house and there wasn't any possibility of a carport, would it then have to be considered still an accessory structure?
I think the key thing is the function as a carport in this case. Unfortunately, I can't give an answer for your other question.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Sherhart? All right, not seeing any. I see the petitioner is here. And if you can hear me, you are currently muted. Are you here?
Carol, is it possible for you as host to unmute someone? Because I know this petitioner in particular.
Yes, but if they're on their phone, I cannot always do it.
Okay.
To the petitioner, if you can hit *6 on your phone, that will unmute you.
Hello?
All right, it worked. Yes, ma'am. The floor is yours. Tell us
Oh,
about your
yes.
plan.
Oh, yes. I can clarify a couple of your questions. Just some background. I moved with my husband in 1984 after graduating vet school, and originally this is a cinder block home from 1950, but slowly I've tried to turn it into something different and plan on staying here many more years and hopefully make it a forever home, and I'll also enhance the neighborhood. But I think the carport is not quite the name. It's strictly a pergola for picturesque purpose. It will never be enclosed. So in the top, I heard you mention the top. Is it a closed-in top? No, it's not a closed-in top because it's not the purpose of to protect my car. I don't know if I think there's a architect CAD drawing that was sent. Can you see the top of the drawing?
Okay.
It's if you've ever seen pergolas, they just have little decorative cross beams, little white railings that go one way, go the other way. They wouldn't even protect it. And it's going to be 4 white round columns sitting on little stone pillars. The only property that it abuts to is my immediate neighbor on the corner. And I've already talked to her, and I says, "What do you think? Would that be? Do you care if it's a couple feet?" She goes, "Absolutely not, because it looks really beautiful." She's renewing her home too. We both have the same thought of improve versus move. And her garage, which she's keeping because she doesn't want to have to move her garage either if she remodels, is going to stay put. So I'm estimating her garage, if you can see from the drawing, or I don't know if you have an aerial view, is probably 35 feet away from my home. Our block is not your typical kind of subdivision block. Everybody has a different house on this block that dates from a different time. So as far as any intrusion on her property or hazard, or it's every structure. And again, I think I submitted the letter from that neighbor about how she felt about that too. But it's not a solid, it will not be, it's as close to the house as possible. I heard another question. Not attached, but because Main Street Design in Birmingham, it will be as close to looking like it. They didn't want to attach it because if the house shifts, if anything shifts, they don't want a structure attached to a shifting structure. So it will be close looking like it is, but it won't be structurally inserted into my cinder block wall for stabilization. And obviously the pillars are going to be below the frost line, so they won't shift either. I mean, they'll be dug well below frost line. I don't know if that helps clarify.
Oh, it does, absolutely. Does anybody at this point have any questions for the petitioner? All right, I don't see any questions. And while we're talking about it, you heard Mr. Ofak's suggestion that if this motion is made a stipulation that it stays a pergola structure and never gets enclosed, you would be perfectly okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. I would not want it. This is just an airy looking, light looking architectural element. I do not want to enclose it. It would absolutely not be enclosed. Okay. And you can put that stipulation in there, absolutely.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, well, I don't see any hands, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table if somebody is prepared to take action. I see Mr. Ofak.
I will then grant this variance as requested with the stipulation that it remains open in the future.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Ofak, and I see a second by Mr. Kroll. Mr. Ofak.
I think this does enhance the house and the neighborhood, makes it look nicer. It's totally decorative. The hardship is that here's a unique structure that's just meant to make things look better, getting categorized into something that it's not. So I think as long as we put the stipulation on there that it can't be enclosed, this is pretty much just an open artistic thing that just happens to be located where it's at. So I don't have a problem with that, with this unique hardship it's brought upon itself.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I think if, again, we kind of categorize everything together, this is probably more of a case for the architectural review board than the zoning board, but we don't have one of those. So I'm in agreement, though. I think it would be really sad if we didn't let these people build this beautiful structure. I mean, it's fun, it's airy, it's great. I'm totally supportive.
Okay, any other comments? Then I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. I'll get all 9 names in front of me so I don't screw this up. I'll start with myself. I vote yes. Mr. Kroll?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Ofak?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
And Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
All right. The motion passes 9-0. You are all set, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I love your comments, and I thank you so much.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So that moves us on to item E5, which is case number 201128, public hearing on the appeal of Doug Schultz, petitioner and owner for the following variance. A, to waive 1 foot of the minimum required 22.5 foot west front yard setback measured to an unenclosed porch and steps to permit construction of a new covered front porch and steps located at 3034 Shenandoah. Ms. Sherhart.
Okay. Yeah, knock on wood. I was expecting this meeting to take longer, but here we are. So the final request before you is a request relative to the expansion or really the removal and then new construction of a covered porch and steps. So let me go to the site plan. The existing home has a 29.5-foot front yard setback, and the existing really just stoop and steps, projects 4 feet and change into the front yard setback. What is being proposed on the next page here is a covered porch that would extend 8 feet into the required front yard setback. Per zoning standards, we allow a front porch and steps to extend 7 feet into the minimum required front yard setback. And so the request before you is one to waive 1 foot from that amount. And as you can see here, the steps actually will be recessed into the porch structure, so that 8 feet does include both the porch and the steps.
All right.
Any questions for me?
Just switch us back first.
Yep.
Mr. Opak.
Yeah, it appears in looking at the survey, am I correct in the assumption that the stairs on the plan is exactly the same location where the stairs are now? And they're just giving the covered porch over to it? Because it looks like currently the site plan says 4 feet and then 3 steps, and this new one says 4 feet and 3 steps. So that's what it looks like to me.
I think the plan, so it should say 8 feet. So on page 6 of the packet is the existing plan.
Right.
And then page 7, we don't actually have the full site plan showing the new porch, but we do have sort of the overhead drawing that shows the existing, like primary facade line of the home. And then you can see that it's 8 feet that it projects. So the depth is 8 feet, not 4.
Maybe the petitioner will be able to respond to that then for sure.
Any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? All right, not seeing any. I see the petitioner is here. And if you can hear me, sir, you do have your computer on mute at this point.
Hi there. Sorry
Hey,
about
sir.
that.
No worries. Tell us about your plan.
Yeah, sure. If Mr. Bonjero is the construction guy, and he was trying to get on, but it doesn't appear as if he's here. I'm not a construction guy, so I can't really speak in too technical of terms. But the porch that we have had since we've lived here for 13 years, and we kind of see this as our forever home. The porch, the small porch that we have right now, we don't see going beyond it at all. If you were to measure it, it would be the length of what the new construction would be. Obviously, we're adding to the left and right. From I guess just our standpoint, my wife and I have been here for 13 years, and our home's relatively small. It's about 1,400 square feet. We really do see using our porch extensively. And, we run parallel to Woodward Avenue, and we do get a lot of traffic down Shenandoah that doesn't always play by the speed limit rules. And we just think, the more porch we can have, the safer it will be for our 9-year-old daughter and our new dog. We're, I guess, I'm not quite certain what else I can answer for you, but I'm happy to do so or try to.
Mr. Curtis has a question. Yes, sir.
Mr. Schultz, thank you. I wanted to ask, I think you just said you're going to expand it along the width of the house, but the depth towards the street won't expand. It'll still be 4 feet deep.
It's again, this is where the builder would, but if you look at the porch that we have right now, it's just it just comes out in front of the door, and that length is the length of the design. But I'm probably not speaking in proper.
Of the new design, it's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think I saw Mr. Ofac and Mr. Klatt.
Oh, I was just going to confirm, and he sort of did just say that stoop is the same length as it is in the new design. So,
excellent, Mr. Klatt.
I was just going to chime in. Based on the drawing, the actual porch surface is about 6 feet deep, not 4 feet if I'm reading this correct. So projecting from the house out, 6 feet deep. And then you factor in the steps. So if that answers your question, Mr. Curtis.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner at this point? Okay, I don't see any. I'll move it back to this side of the table. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start with Mr. Kroll. I didn't see your hand in time. Go ahead, sir.
It's back to this side of the table?
Yes, sir.
I will make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion, and we have a second by Mr. Ofac, and I will jump back to Mr. Kroll.
It's pretty hard to give up a whole foot. I kind of looked at this and said, you can do all this for a foot? Sounds like a good deal to me. So I think they're asking very little, and I think the neighborhood will be enhanced by the result of what they're doing. So I like it a lot.
All right, Mr. Ofac.
The hardship I see is the fact that they currently have a stoop of at least 4 feet and 3 steps, and they're keeping that in their new design. And to try and cut it by 1 foot would essentially make that door swing right into the steps, which is not a safe condition. So I don't have a problem with giving them that at minimum 4 feet space between the first step and the door due to that hardship.
All right, Mr. Klatt.
I'll be in support as well. I mean, I think, yeah, the hardship really, it's the grade is the grade. They have to work within, they need those steps to get up to that current elevation of the first floor. So they have to factor that into the design. To minimize that porch a foot would really make it a little bit less usable. At 6 feet deep, that's barely enough to get a chair out there, to have some comfortable seating. And I think that's encouraged in Royal Oak. We want pedestrian walkable streets, and that porch should be a welcome addition to the house and neighborhood, I feel. So I'll be in support.
All right, any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and start the roll call vote then. I'll start at the bottom this time. Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Klatt.
Aye.
Mr. Ofac.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Ms. Zukin.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that motion passes 9-0. You are all set, sir.
Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
All right, have a great night. All right, so that concludes the regular portion of the agenda. Moving along to other business, I think I can probably hand this off to Mr. Kaluzny in terms of your department did issue a memo regarding the property located at 4105 Highfield. Is there anything that you want to add to that before we sort of talk about it?
There's nothing that I have to add to the memo. I did want to make sure that everybody did receive the memo. There was a request for reconsideration from the 4-4 decision on 4105 Highfield. We did prepare a memo, our office. It is up to the board to make a decision on that.
If there is going to be a motion to reconsider, does it need to be made by somebody who was in opposition of it initially, or does it matter?
That I'm not sure. I mean, they made the motion. I think that the board itself can make a determination. I don't know that someone who voted in opposition would necessarily have to make that motion.
According to Robert's rules, I wasn't sure procedurally how that works. So let me start. I see a bunch of hands. I'll start with Mr. Ofac. I saw his first.
Well, since there were actually two things that both defeated in the 4-4 tie, you have two people that could make the motion. So I'll just make the motion to reconsider that case so that we can get a firm vote one direction or another.
You voted against it too, didn't you, Anthony?
I did, and I think I might have made the motion to oppose.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? I see Mr. Gavin.
Since I was the person that wasn't here, I will go ahead and second that. So we can
I don't think he should second and said he didn't vote on it, did he?
I don't think it matters, but I'll second it.
Vote against it, Deb?
Yep.
Well, I mean, legal opinions have been offered that a person who missed a meeting can still offer support of a motion that is a continuation of a previous item that's been hammered off the table a handful of times. Unless, Mr. Calusi, you feel more comfortable with somebody other than Mr. Gavin supporting that motion. Or offering a second, I should say.
It might be better if someone support the motion who
voted against it, yeah.
Okay,
right.
Just to keep it clean, then I will say that Ms. Zukin offered.
I'll withdraw my second.
All right, so the second by Mr. Gavin has been withdrawn, and do I have a second from Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
All right. All right, are there any additional comments from anybody on this?
Well, does this, okay, so this would just bring them back before us to re-vote on it?
In December, yes.
In December, okay.
All right, that seems simple enough.
What if?
Oh, Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
So what if the same people are there and the ones that weren't there are gone? Does it matter? I mean,
well, to make
what
sure
if we don't have the
Gavin
full
is there?
board, I guess?
Is there public comment again?
There will be. We will be re-noticing, so there will be a public hearing again.
Mr. Gavin.
I was just wondering if we should confirm that everybody, I mean, I know schedules change, but maybe we should actually confirm that everybody can be there, or at least an odd number of us. So that
it's December 10th is the meeting.
And you can be there from anywhere in the world.
Hopefully not.
Well, I'm not going to ask if everybody can be there. I mean, we all understand our responsibility to this board, but if something comes up, then so be it. And if it gets kicked back to January, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. So.
And in all reality, we just have to make sure that there's a vote of 5, at least on one of the ways.
Ms. Robinson, do I see your hand?
I'm confused. We're going to rehear the whole thing? What are we doing here in December then?
Well, it's just going to be added to the agenda. So there's plenty of other cases for December. This case just will be heard.
That's not my question. That's not my question. My question is, what do we hear the whole case again? Is this something new that we're hearing?
I mean, if you're asking, are we going back to square A? I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
It's going to be renoticed, and it would be treated almost like a brand new agenda item, even though we did hear it. That's my understanding, at least.
There's no new information from them, though.
Oh, okay.
I'm not aware of that. But yeah, it would be a whole. Basically, the goal would be to have the hearing in front of a full board.
So there's not a 4-4 split vote.
Right.
So we don't have to go to the Supreme Court. Is that what you're saying?
You never know.
Okay, I'm just trying to be clear so I understand. So we had the case and we asked, are you okay with it? Because not everybody's here. And they said, yeah, they were okay with that. And then we voted and now they don't like that. I guess what I'm saying. And so now they're saying, no, we want to change our mind and come back before the whole board. Is that what's happening?
Well, that's not really what's driving it, because we did get a legal opinion from the city that said a 4-4 vote was in effect not taking action at all.
Okay.
So I think we're moving more on the recommendation of the city attorney's office than the wishes of the petitioner.
Okay.
Mr. Kaluzny?
I think the attorney-client privilege memo speaks for itself.
All right. Ms. Zukin.
I'd also point out, although it's not relevant, that they were originally scheduled to be second on the docket and they got moved to first. And that's the only time that Mr. Gavin wasn't there, I think, because we accommodated somebody else who wasn't able to be there at the beginning. Not Mr. Gavin, but the petitioner.
weren't they having problems, technical
That was the
problems?
first time. That was the first time.
Yeah, no, this was the second time. We had the first petitioner wasn't able to get there, and
The other issue, and maybe Juliana could address, is if the board does go ahead to allow reconsideration, it would be our position that the petitioner shouldn't have to pay to have that rehearing. I don't know if the board can make that determination or not. I mean,
I think that's something that staff can discuss. I don't know, it would be in the purview of the board to determine whether or not they have to pay, but I think that's within our purview to waive it.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope for the board to walk down.
Yeah.
Mr. Curtis.
Well, just on that topic, you said it's a slippery topic. My understanding, this is for Juliana, just as a general principle, is if it's the same case number, then it's the same fee. If it's a new fee, it's a new case number. That's always been my understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and, Ms. Zukin, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add to it that this is just a procedural thing we're going through, and it's not a new petition, and it's because it was a 4-4 vote, basically, which we usually don't run into, so.
All right, so let me do the roll call vote then. Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Klatt.
Aye.
Mr. Opak.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Ms. Zukin.
Aye.
Ms. Anderson.
Aye.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
And I vote aye. All right, so that motion passes, so I imagine we'll be seeing that come December. All right, and we didn't have any public comment as stated earlier, so is
Motion.
Mr. Hart, is there anything else for the good of the city?
No.
All right, Mr. Kroll, I think I heard you. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. No second, we're gonna stay here all night, Mr. Gavin? All right, I'm sick of saying roll call vote, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, good night, everybody. We will see you in a month.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Bye, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Stay
Take
safe
care.
out there. Everyone's getting
Bye,
sick.
everyone.